Hi, and welcome back to Slot Leader, your Cardano finance podcast where we try to bridge the gap between the world of finance and the world of blockchain technology. I'm your host, Umed Saidov, and in today's episode, we will continue talking to Jules Ratcliffe, an investor and a venture capitalist who has been looking into the blockchain space as a way to invest in companies and technologies. He's quite an avid believer in this space, and in today's episode, we will continue talking about the space. More specifically, we will be talking about the evolution of blockchain technology from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Cardano, and we will go into deep end of questions like is DAO going to eventually replace the idea of the company? We have a lot of interesting conversation in this bit, so stay tuned and hope you enjoy this part of the interview. If you are a Cardano stakeholder and you would like to support Slot Leader, one of the ways you could do that is by staking your ADA with skylightpool.com. We've been running our pools since the early days of ITN, and we've amassed enormous amount of experience and generated great rewards for our stakeholders. We run two pools with tickers Sky and Sky2, and we offer great benefits also. For those of you who have been staking with us since the beginning, I would like to thank you. For those of you who are thinking about joining us, please consider that we will create additional content and analytical reports and exclusive AMAs with me once we build these functionalities and features on pooltool.io. As always, I would like to remind our viewers and listeners that Slot Leader is an educational podcast, and as such, we do not provide investment, financial, tax, or legal advice. Let's talk about what's been happening in the blockchain industry this past week. One of the very prominent events that took place was the comment made by Janet Yellen, an incoming Secretary of Treasury in the United States, is being on record saying that the cryptocurrencies are used mainly for illegal activities. Not only this represents a false narrative, which is provably wrong. That's one of the beautiful things about blockchain industries, that everything is on chain and you can trace this. There are specialized firms like Chainalysis that do analytics, forensics, and their job is made easier by tracking the public ledger. Now, when somebody that's of that statute makes these kind of comments, the markets react. Of course, the markets started correcting downward as a result, I think, of that comment, and that's healthy for a market to do that, because it tries to price the risk of regulation that would hamper or stifle the innovation in this space. But I think in aggregate, if we look at what OCC did in terms of letting the banks use the public blockchain in order to transfer money, and the incoming SEC's chairman's views about the blockchain, which I would say that it's not very bullish, but not as bearish as the former heads of those agencies were. And Janet Yellen's comment is actually on the bearish side of things. So, in aggregate, I would say I would sum up all this, all these views as neutral at the best, at the worst, and maybe bullish in the best case. Now there are understandably concerns from the government for this space to be used by illegal. For illegal purposes, but structurally and technologically, I think blockchain is the nightmare for people who public blockchain who want to conduct their nefarious acts, because every transaction you do online on a public blockchain is visible. Now, there are products out there like Monero, like Zcash, that will obfuscate the types of transactions that you do. Nobody knows who spent what kind of money where, but their roots go back to the privacy being the fundamental right of a human being. So that's the reason why they were created. So when you take in aggregate, I think, the blockchain space, I don't think there is a case to be made that it's used by nefarious actors, because that's provably wrong. Chainalysis has done these kind of analysis. You can Google it all online. And the second is that it's really not a good tool for nefarious actors to use it, because it's all traceable. You can find who did what and take appropriate actions. So that's basically my two Lovelaces at this point about these kind of comments. I hope that this comment by Janet Yellen was basically at the best a misinformed sort of comment, that because maybe she does not understand it, or or it's just her personal view that does not reflect, unfortunately, the reality. So so that's basically the type of news that I wanted to bring to you today, and hash it out a little bit. When it comes to Cardano, we had another interesting piece of news coming out this last week, and that is has to do something with Ergo, which is a project that is kind of related to the Cardano, because I think the guy who created Ergo used to work for IOHK, and now Ergo is a separate project, but there are still close ties between the Cardano community and the Ergo community. Now, Ergo community, it looks like they have went ahead and created a stable coin, and that stable coin is apparently coming to the Cardano's ecosystem once we have Plutus, because both of them are created on Plutus. So if you would like to know more about this development and what it entails for the Cardano community, I could I will put the links down at the comment section for this video. But my personal view is that these stable coins are an absolute necessary. It's a necessity to have in ecosystems like Cardano, because not only do they provide stability, but they also provide the way to lock your coins and earn extra rewards or extra returns. So it's basically a way for the ecosystem to grow into a more full-fledged, diverse, asset diverse, community. So I'm really looking forward to this coin to become a reality on Cardano's network. But I'm also hoping that we will have actual stable coins like USDC or some variation thereof that is backed by actual United States dollars or whatever fiat currency you might fancy to come onto the Cardano community. It would be great to have that, because people transact in different currencies, people have and want to have different exposure, and it's a natural next stepping stone for us to develop into a vibrant community of people and assets that represents these people in different countries and whatnot, and the step after that, I think, is going to be bringing equities and debt and different kinds of instruments coming online. I have a sneak peek into what the future might hold by talking to people who are thinking about bringing some projects onto the Cardano. You will see some of the guests coming down the road who will be talking about these amazing projects, and I can't tell you about those right now, but I mean, I will. When they come online and talk about their projects, you'll be quite surprised at the capabilities of blockchain technology and what it could do in order to transform the financial industry as a whole. It's quite exciting, and I cannot wait to share those thoughts with you, those interviews with you. I'm scheduling a couple of interviews down the road, so we will see what those will how they pan out. But from my earlier discussion with the guests, those will be really, really interesting projects. Now, I want to go into your thoughts about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the third generation blockchain like Cardano. Do you see? Have you noticed the change evolution of technology, and do you think we're heading in the right direction?
Yeah, no, we're definitely heading in the right direction. As I said, when I first started looking at Bitcoin, I it was very questionable as to what its real use case was. And obviously, if you go back and read the first white paper, it talks obviously about peer-to-peer payments, and so it's it's a very kind of rudimentary use case. But that's built and developed, and people were then talking about coloured coins and this approach of trying to use that's infrastructure to do other things. And then the second generation things, Ethereum came through, and there's been enormous innovation on the back of that, and it's it really pushed the whole sort of thought process and the whole theory of distributed ledgers forwards. But as I was saying earlier, I think variable infrastructure costs mean it's not massively commercial and very difficult for someone who's within an existing business to try and move lock and stock onto that DLT. But then with third generation blockchains, I think they look to solve a lot of the problems that we mentioned. It's like speed. I mean, obviously the transactions per second on Bitcoin, I'm not sure what it is now, but when I was looking at it closely, it was less than 20 per second, 7 per second, or 50, whatever. But miles off the 20,000 a second that you need in a serious financial infrastructure. So I think that the speed, things like scalability, interoperability, territoriality, privacy, fault tolerance, all of these I think are issues which the first generations of blockchain threw up, but now which are being addressed in a sort of sensible and mature way, with the likes of Cardano and a number of others. And I think, to that point, I know that you're a huge fan of Cardano, but I think, we've got to look at the whole ecosystem, and this is not a winner takes all kind of game, right? There's going to be a number of different protocols, and some which are more appropriate and suitable for certain use cases than others. But a lot of value will come in that interoperability piece and being able to hop from one to the next. And so I think that's, again, is something which people, forward-thinking developers are building into their products and protocols right now.
Oh, thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, Jules. I remember while you were talking, I remember the conversation we had back in the business school about we started I started wondering, why don't we have a one universal currency in the world? And fast forward 10 years, and here we are, where we actually have multiple coins that could be used as a currency. Now, the volatility aside, and we can get to that later if you want, because we have stable coins, we have networks that are ubiquitous around the world. Do you think we are going to see things like decentralized exchanges where property somewhere that has been codified and captured as a token somewhere, a piece of land, let's say in Africa, could be sold? So are we heading in the direction where we will have one global community of different kinds of assets living in a blockchain, where you can buy and sell and exchange all different kinds of assets that have been tokenized already?
Yeah. Well, this is kind of the dream of of this approach, isn't it? That rather than holding your value in fiat currency, why couldn't you hold it in a yielding asset? And why couldn't that asset be some commercial real estate, which today you need $1 billion, whatever, to buy some commercial real estate and get a 7% yield or whatever it typically is. Why couldn't I have $1,000 of that same opportunity? And actually, why do I need to hold my value in fiat currency? Why couldn't I hold it in a number of these assets, whether it's real estate or gold, or even lots of other underlying assets, but then just nip off a bit of value when I want to buy my Starbucks and so on. So,
exactly. Yeah.
This is kind of one of the dreams of many blockchain entrepreneurs. I guess what are the steps to getting there? First of all, you need these assets to be, as you say, codified and put onto a blockchain which is reliable. But I think, and you see some of those projects are coming through in the States. I think there are a number of real estate tokenization projects. I think in Germany, I've seen a few. So these things are starting to happen. So that side of things is there. I guess on the being able to, what's lacking, and what I see lacking for some time with all of these is liquidity. So you can tokenize any asset you like, but then who's going to be buying and selling it? I mean, this is one of the sort of benefits of blockchain, or Bitcoin rather, is that it is, global by nature, and everyone should be able to buy more or less for the same price, same value. But then there's a lot of liquidity, there's a lot of people trading on it. So it means that anytime you want to sell, you can. The problem with some of the asset-backed tokens is that there isn't necessarily someone there ready to buy at the point at which you want to sell. So that it's sort of one of these things which needs a lot of volume for it to make sense. But I don't see any reason why that couldn't happen in due course. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, to your point, liquidity is a problem because I think we don't have the regulatory frameworks to actually allow the financial institutions to actually invest or be in these markets. In the United States, at least, these markets are really well regulated, and you cannot just take somebody's money and buy Bitcoin. And to that point, Bitwise, which is a financial sort of a company in the United States that has put together top 10 crypto assets. So they have a trust that holds them, and they issued shares in that index. You can see the appetite from the institutional investors that want to have asset exposure to crypto, but can't have that because they are limited by what they can invest and what avenues they can use in order to invest. And the big question there is custody, whether, whatever you're buying is held responsibly. Now, at this point, I don't think anybody questions the security of a blockchain, but they question the procedures surrounding those wallets, because as you know, you lose your 12 or 24 words, you can say goodbye to billions of dollars right there. But so my observation, at least from my side, is that the regulatory side of things aren't there, and that creates a lot of friction for these markets to evolve. And the way I see it right now, as I mentioned, Bitwise, the top 10 crypto, it's trading at least 2 to 4 times the net asset value. I mean, that should give you an indication of where, how much the demand outstrips the supply in that channel. And it's very bullish for cryptocurrency and digital assets in general, I think. Now, I wanted to get your thought about one other thing, Jules. Do you think blockchain is going to disrupt the idea of a company? You mentioned quite a few times earlier that the companies started playing with these things, and then it turned out that it's not quite usable for them, or it doesn't generate value for them in their current forms. So my question to you is that, are we trying to basically fit a round peg in a square hole by saying, okay, companies need to use blockchain to do X, Y, and Z? And now the reason I'm asking this is that I'm seeing more and more I'm being more and more bullish about cases where a piece of code that lives on a decentralized ledger or a blockchain could do the same things that your company could do. We're talking about decentralized autonomous organizations. Now, do you think the blockchain, and especially the DAOs, are disrupting the idea of a company?
Wow, that's a big question. I think it depends what the function is, And I think to go back to sort of some startup fundamentals, the question is what is the job to be done, and whether it's a DAO or whether it's a piece of code with some AI that you deploy, which we're seeing more and more. It's about what's the task to be done, and does it actually require a person to do it, or can you automate it? And there's a lot of stuff which can be automated, but you've got to be organized. And I think as we see with AI, it's very much about the quality of the data and the information coming through and how that's then connected, on the other side. So I don't think is the way that people do business going to change inevitably. But is it going to completely, do away with businesses or I don't know? No, I think you still need a lot of thought and intelligence going into kind of putting a business together and finding clients, and there's so many elements to putting a successful business together that you are going to continue to need all of those bits and strategy and continual innovation and in process and so on. So I think some DAOs, because they're going to need a lot of oversight as well, as we've already seen, these foundations and things which were set up to be automated have just not operated quite right. Now there's so many. The thing is, there's so many unforeseen circumstances and events that you need someone to sort of hold the reins and direct the way that things go. So I can see these being great tools and helping people enormously, but are they going to disrupt businesses? For the most part, no. I mean, I can see, back to our chat about finance, things like foreign exchange, it seems like a bit of a race to the bottom in terms of commissions and changing from one currency to the next. It should all become like super automated, and that's enormous. Should be an enormous commodity, and yet there are still businesses out there which have a lot of staff and take phone calls and all the rest of it and do things in what we'd see quite an antiquated way. So I think there's still a lot of room for business, some industries to catch up, but I don't necessarily see it as disrupting the way that people do businesses as a whole.
I see. And the reason I mentioned that is that I saw a piece of news recently that in Wyoming, in the United States at least, the legislators are thinking about recognizing DAO as a legal entity. And if that were to happen and become ubiquitous around the world, then you might see at least the decentralized autonomous organizations being self-organized to do X, Y, and Z. And
you can run into the same challenges that you have with self-driving cars, which is who is accountable. And when things go wrong, who does the buck stop with? And so,
there's a lot of challenges that we need to address, of course, with regards to that. But I actually see the role of DAO. There will be people who would be maintaining that DAO, and they will ask for salaries, right? So, let's say that we have a decentralized, let's just have a thought process, right? There's a decentralized server, a bunch of servers out there that do the same thing that Uber does for you, except that it doesn't require X number of people. It's not as prohibitive in costs. And the value accrues to the token holders of that DAO, which are holders around the world. Anybody can be the holder of that token. And the basic task is to coordinate the passengers with the taxi drivers. And whoever is connected to that basically gets that information. It's just a very simple example of what DAO can do in order to create value for its token holders, and that value is enormous, because we're not talking only about the United States or UK, but we're talking about the entire world being able to use these services for a fraction of the cost, basically,
But I mean, to counter that, are you not overlooking a lot of the setup costs? I mean, to continue that Uber
Yeah.
example, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've got a lot of costs in advertising, in recruiting drivers, in putting the technology, in updating the technology. You know, there's a lot of cost associated with it.
Yes. Yes. So let's say that there is a cost. Let's say that the DAO needs to advertise itself, right? It could have a budget that would, just like the way we have in Cardano, it could have a budget cycle where you could say, the marketers of the world bid for this contract, and it doesn't have to have a staff. It could just basically say, we are welcoming every bid out there in the world. We need to basically create awareness about our services in you choose the countries, right? And the choice in terms of countries could be voted itself also. Let's say that the DAO is thinking about entering a market in Nigeria. So they can just basically vote on that, and then once that vote has taken place, then they could just open up the bids for a budget that they have, and accept bids around the world. Mind you, it probably, because we are bidding in a very open, very global sort of world, the winners could be somebody from India that does the same job better. I mean, we have problems there, of course, in terms of like who makes sure that the quality of the service is up to par to to what we are expecting on the other end. And but I think in the long run, through iterations, you might have specialized companies that serve DAOs.
It's possible, but I see the benefit of that, but my sense is that's still quite some way off.
Okay.
I think there's going to be, I think we've got some other building blocks have to be in place before that's kind of, all going to sort of stack up.
I see. Now, in terms of Jules, I know that you're busy, so I'll start wrapping this whole thing up.
Okay.
I would like to get your sort of opinion about decentralized budgets and decentralized treasuries. As you know, we talked about it a little bit. Cardano has a decentralized treasury that disperses funds every 6 weeks. Do you think there will be a good sort of a use case and a good interest from the technology side of things and incubators to actually direct their potential companies to bid for projects, or basically produce projects for Cardano? And I will tell you how it works in a nutshell. Every 6 weeks, we have a X number of dollars or in ADA available in order to build the ecosystem. And the challenge is there is that you have a mission statement kind of thing, and you can basically say, hey, what kind of apps would you dApps would you like to build on Cardano? And then companies bid. They say, okay, we want to build X, we want to build Y, and then they present their projects for review. And then there are an interim stage where the community advisors evaluate these projects for fit for the community. And then once they have done that, the community votes and they get funded by a decentralized organization. It's very kind of DAO-like sort of experience. The company that I'm involved with, Pool Tool, has recently got a funding through them, and it's kind of a next stage, next generation kind of experience. We got paid by an entity that lives in Ether, not Ether, Ethereum, but like out there. So, do you think, from your experience, do you think there would be a lot of startups who would start catering to these kind of blockchains?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we've seen good evidence of that with some other protocols, raising tokens and trying to incentivize projects to use their protocol. EOS have done a lot of it. I think Algorand, who's the other one, Cadre. So I think the methodology and the model is there of trying to build, bring people into using the protocol. I think the thing is for each protocol, they obviously want to get as many developers using their own protocol as possible, because like all these things, the more someone uses it, the more they understand its nuances and its real benefits. And people who use one protocol a lot will become evangelists for it and try and bring others in. So the network effect grows by having more people, incentivizing people to use it in that way. So I think that certainly is a positive step. The decentralized funding you spoke of, I mean, and I think this speaks to your previous point about DAOs. It's essentially some governance which needs to be well codified, and the rules really well set up and thought through before they're committed. But then, a lot of these things inevitably can run fairly smoothly and automatically and independently. So, I think that they're great constructs.
Absolutely. So, we're getting to the end of our interview, Jules. If you have any final thoughts, that would be great time right now to share them with our audience.
Well, I suppose, we've seen, I'm sure you've been around blockchain for long enough, and through the periods, I've looked at it and been engaged with some of these projects. I think we've seen different protocols come through. But obviously, the most interest comes into the whole space when the Bitcoin price takes off. And so, as I said before, I think there's still a lot of people who equate, blockchain and DLT with Bitcoin and don't necessarily see the difference of the wood for the trees. But I think there's still a long way to go. As I said, I think Bitcoin, it took me a long time, and probably until the middle of last year, I was somewhat skeptical of its value and what's the point of it if you can't use it to do any transactions because the cost is too high. You can't run other things on it, so what's the point? But I think we have to look beyond our own experience. It may have value in emerging economies as a store of value, and that's how I've kind of come to see Bitcoin as like a digital gold in many respects. I think with all this institutional money that's come in, it's really going to hold its value and continue to push upwards. And I think that's going to pull the whole of the rest of the community, of the crypto community, and these other blockchains with it. So I think fundamentally there's good signs, and should be a lot of opportunity in the next few years as some more use cases stick and start to really show their value, but equally as crypto generally is more accepted. And I think to add to that point is the fact that governments around the world are starting to issue their own digital currencies because they can see where this is all going, you see. So I think we're still in the foothills of what's possible and what's achievable, but I think it's very much onwards and upwards from here.
Oh, thank you so much, Jules. To the point of price, I might add that I can't wait to see for this space to develop beyond being very highly correlated to Bitcoin. I think I basically chalk this up to liquidity. If you want to be in this space as a big player, you need to come in through Bitcoin and get out through Bitcoin.
Sure.
But I hope that down the road, we will see projects that could stand on their own and be valued on the fundamentals. And hopefully we'll see some, use cases for blockchain that wouldn't necessarily, require that that you're running your app on Cardano, for instance, but you would be using it, and and the network will accrue value that way.
Yeah.
To that point, I ask all my guests. This is a new sort of end of the episode question. Do you think right now we're standing at 36 cents per ADA US cents? Where do you think we will end up at the end of the year if you were to guess the price of ADA?
Well, I'm not an expert here, so I think you have to make a prediction on a whole number of things and try and bring that into your forecast. So, in terms of usage, in terms of the broader crypto markets, what federal governments are doing in terms of printing money, inflation and interest rates, the global recession. So, trying to forecast any of these things, you're unlikely to get right. So, with ADA, I sort of looked at some of the price trends, and the first half of last year it was around 5 cents, and then second half of the year it was about 12, 13 cents. At the start of this year, as I say, it's from average of like 25, and maybe it's up to 35 now. But I guess by the end of this year, with momentum in Bitcoin and more projects, it could double and double again. So perhaps over $1. So maybe in the $1 to $1.50 range. But big disclaimer, I have no idea.
No, I mean, this is just basically a fun question to end the interview with. And I mean, there is maybe an element of the hive mind working also. When you collate all these different kinds of guessworks, you might end up at something that actually makes sense. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jules. It was a tremendous honor to have you here, and hope to see you again soon.
Well, thanks very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. See you soon. Cheers, Anne.
This marks the end of our episode today. If you like the type of content that we're putting together, please don't forget to subscribe, like, or comment. And when you do subscribe, don't forget to push that bell button so you get notified the next time we release an episode. And I promise you, as the time goes by, they will get quite interesting. We are entering an era in Cardano where we will see a more robust types of products and very interesting use cases for this project. I'm your host, Umed Saidov, and you've been watching and listening to Slot Leader. I'll see you next time.